Hey everyone! Welcome to the first installation, maybe last, who knows, of the Insomnia Book Club. So, as you know, if you listen to the podcast, She Existed, I love learning. I love learning things. I don't just randomly Google famous women, though. I also read voraciously, like all the time. If I'm not doing something else, I'm probably reading. Love regular, like, traditional paper books. Do have a Kindle right now because my husband and I have moved overseas from the US to Europe, and sadly you can't bring hundreds and hundreds of pounds of books with you. So anyway, I don't sleep super well. I often wake up in the middle of the night for no reason at all. And even if I'm tired, I can't get back to sleep. And I used to just doom scroll, like where you go on social media and you just like over and over and over. And that was really, really bad for my mental health. So I've been keeping my Kindle right by my bed and trying to remember to just read some of that whenever I can, so that I'm not, I'm taking in something useful rather than just the bad news, because there is a lot of bad news in the world. Anyway, so usually what happens after that is that I will then wake up in the morning and proceed to immediately tell my sweet, patient, poor husband all about whatever I read the night before. And what I realized is that, and he likes to listen, I think, although probably should wait until after coffee. But I think he enjoys it. But what I realize is that I don't even know how well I'm actually retaining any of this stuff. So I thought it might be kind of fun and funny to do this. I don't know. I'm not even recording that microphone. I decided to record this in the sound studio, not only because it's kind of loud outside, but also because this is sort of how insomnia feels. I don't know if you've ever not been able to sleep. But you feel kind of trapped and kind of, So I was just gonna do this thematically in jammies and no makeup because, that's what I look like when I'm reading. And I am in jammies, actually. This shirt, this flannel shirt actually belonged to my dad. When I was a really little kid, and I don't know if this was like a normal thing, but like when I was very, very teeny tiny, like 4, maybe, I was obsessed with wearing like my dad's t-shirts. Like, I loved them because they were basically dresses, which then, like, much later in my teens and 20s, that actually became kind of a cool style, like the long dress. Anyway, so I was way ahead of my time. But anyway, I loved wearing my dad's t-shirts. Obviously, as I got older, they don't fit in the same way. But when I moved up to New York City, when my dad moved me up to New York City right after I graduated, when I was like 24, I guess, this shirt was used to like pack something in the car, and I just kept it, and I've had it ever since. So I don't know how long he had it before. I mean, it's kind of stained and has all kinds of shit on it, but I love to wear it. It's very comfy, so it is definitely in the regular comfy clothes / jammies rotation. I did decide to put lipstick on because, as I realized in the last filming of the last episode of She Existed, I never get to wear lipstick anymore, ever. Because whenever we go out, I'm wearing a mask, and the few times that I have done that, like, it gets all in the inside of the mask, it's gross, and then you, like, take it off if you're sitting at a restaurant or something, because where we are in Italy, you can actually go and we sit outside and stuff. But anyway, you like, don't know what has happened here. And I don't want to be the person who, like, takes out a compact at her beautiful table and it's just, ugh. So, I like lipstick. I have a lot of it. So I'm just gonna roll with that. Okay, so the most recent book that I read during one of my insomnia sessions was I Am Legend. Yeah, the vampire novel that inspired like tons and tons of movies, including one with Will Smith, which I don't remember super well. I was pretty young when it came out, like in my early teens, I want to say, maybe mid-teens. You know what? It was definitely like early mid-teens, because I do seem to recall a very intense and steamy shower scene with Will Smith in the beginning. So I remember that. I remember product placement for shoes, but I don't remember which shoes. Maybe it was Air Force Ones or something. Anyway, it like took place in the future, so they were like, oh, look at these new shoes of the future, which conveniently were like being released. I think they even call them like, it's like vintage 2019 Air Force Ones or 2011 or whatever. Anyway, so that's about as much as I remember that. So I actually don't know how faithful that is. And I feel like I saw another movie based on this, maybe with Willem Dafoe. Is that real? Like, I just have this vision of Willem Dafoe, like, leaping into sunlight, and, but then he doesn't die. Is that how they fix? Is that the same movie? Oh, God. I don't even remember. Okay. Anyway, not here to talk about the movies. I really enjoy vampire stories and lore and legend, so I've always wanted to read I Am Legend. And when I looked at it in the Kindle store, it was, like, very short. I think it like estimated like a 2.5 hour read, which is about, I did a little faster than that. I'm a pretty fast reader. It's like my only skill. So I read it in one night is the takeaway there. I got up at like 3 a.m. and just read all of I Am Legend, and then woke up and was like, ugh. Now, to make this more in theme with She Existed, really, I feel like I should read, what's that like awesome lesbian vampiress novel from around this like earlier, Camellia, something like that. Anyway, that sounds like a dope book, so maybe I'll download that and read that another time, and then I can compare the two. But anyway, from what I recall in my Insomnia haze, I Am Legend, is about the last guy left. So there's a pandemic, which felt kind of pertinent to now. And actually, does anyone else like really get off on like looking at pandemic media right now? Like books or movies? Like I watched that one movie, the one, I don't know, what was it called? Quarantine or Pandemic? I don't know. But the one with Kate Winslet, who is like a big deal, as she always is. Anyway, it was interesting because like in that movie, they didn't implement social distancing until like the end of like the major pandemic. Like the streets were gross and there were like lines for bread, and then they were like, oh man, we really got to implement these social distancing measures. And I was like, you fools, that's like the first thing you do. In fact, in a lot of places, it's like the only thing you do. So anyway, kind of a similar thing with I Am Legend. They were like super laissez-faire about this like weird mysterious virus. So in the beginning, there's this dude whose name I don't remember because I read it at 3 a.m. But it doesn't really matter what his name is because he's the only human. So we'll call him Only Human Guy. So Only Human Guy is living his medium life. I'm not going to call it his best life. But he's got like a nice wife that he likes. I think her name is Virginia. And they have a daughter whose name is Katie, or might be the other way around. Anyway, so it's nice, like the world kind of sucks. It seems like there was some sort of war and everything exploded, and not explode, like maybe there was a bomb, and then there were these dust storms that like are this like post-apocalyptic kind of thing that I'm really glad we haven't had yet. Although my house was kind of trashed in a tornado last year, which was a very uniquely Nashville experience to have in 2020, but kind of in the broader theme of things. So they've got these dust storms, they got these like mosquitoes and giant bugs, and it's kind of gross. And then there's like this plague, and the only human left guy and his wife are like chit-chatting about, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And they decide to still send their daughter to school. Like, not only no social distancing, but like business as usual, let's go to school. So I guess it's like they're in Texas or something. But I actually don't think I think they're like somewhere in the middle of the country. I don't know why I think that. Was that in the book? Did I make that up? I don't know. So they decide to kind of proceed as normal, but the wife is kind of sick, and that is no bueno. And you kind of, obviously, like, we're reading the book. It takes place in current time, which is long after this has happened. I think about 2 years after this happened. And like only human guy left is like haunted. He is haunted by these memories of his wife and his daughter, and like he's alone. So you know this has not gone super well. And he does have this weird relationship with one of the vampires. So like these vampires exist, right? So, oh my gosh, see, I don't remember this at all. I'm really bad at this, and I'm going to rewatch this, and then I'm going to have to understand what my husband goes through, like every time I read a book. So, only human dude, lives alone. He's like fortified his house. He's got a generator. Things are okay. He's really lonely. He like drinks a ton, which I think we can all a little bit relate to in the pandemic if you are a drinker. It's probably ticked up a bit, or else you're on a super health yoga kick, in which case maybe you've stopped completely. I don't know. So he's living in this fortified house all by himself. He's realized he can go out during the day. That's cool. And then the vampires taunt him at night. Like they literally just show up at his house and taunt him constantly. And one of the guys, whose name I also don't remember, it's like Benjamin. We'll call him Benjamin. I don't know if that's his name. So Benjamin is this like vampire who used to be his neighbor, who is like the king taunter. Just like shows up every day. He's like, ah, come on, guy, like come on out and play, whatever. And then he's like flanked by these, I'm not even gonna call them sexy vampire ladies. Like they're not described as being sexy, just naked. And only human guy left is like a little horny because he's been alone for 2 years. So like they basically just stand outside and flash him, and it's creepy. So pretty early on, it's clear that there are two kinds of vampires, so they say. There are the living vampires, so they're like alive but have this disease. And then there are the dead who have like come back to life. And it's very confusing to everyone, or it was before they all died, because everyone's gone. And no one really had time to understand why this was or what it was. Basically, it starts out as this plague, and then very quickly the world escalates into, fuck, there are vampires, it's real, like crosses, garlic, blah, 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 mirrors, whatever. And only human guy left has kind of realized that a lot of that is true. So, like, the vampires really don't like garlic, and a lot of them, they do seem to, like, respond to the cross and, like, can't get in from that. He basically, like, strings tons of garlic around his house to prevent the taunters from getting in every night. So, eventually, only human guy left, I think, realizes that whiskey is probably not enough to keep one going. You need a purpose. And so he decides that he wants to investigate what has created these vampires. So he decides, he's like, look, I know that people went nuts and were just like, vampires are real, but there's got to be a reason. So he goes and he learns as much as he can about science. What is he looking at? So he starts looking into like diseases and like learning as much as he can about like blood specifically, since these creatures like to, suck blood, and blood-borne diseases. He like learns about microscopes. Apparently it's a lot harder than I thought it was. He gets one. He's like looking at shit. He's trying to figure out like why garlic works, and he's like putting like the garlic in with the blood samples and like not seeing the kind of reaction that he sees, that he wants to see, where it's like, oh, like I can just distill this thing and make this thing. Anyway, in the meantime, so he's doing that, and that's like giving him a little bit of life. The other thing that gives him meaning and purpose is going around during the day and like just fucking wrecking any vampire he comes across. So he has realized like a stake through the heart works, so he like stakes them. He is a little confused though, because like he's not a doctor. He doesn't really understand exactly where the heart is. And it like, but he seems to hit it every time. So that seems weird to him. That will become important later. So yeah, basically he makes stakes, he goes and stakes vampires, and then he like puts on his science hat and learns. So that's all he's doing. There's like some dramatic things happen. Like he goes to visit the grave of his daughter. You find out that like everyone was there's like this eternally burning pit in the center of town where I guess everyone was supposed to be putting their bodies as everyone died, because you had to burn them or else like they would come back to life as vampires. He wouldn't do that with his wife, so he buried her, and then she like crawled back up and attacked him, and oh, it sounds awful. He did burn his daughter, but then he like made a grave, so he like goes to the grave, loses track of time, he's like freaking out. So like that's like a dramatic thing that happens. Another dramatic thing that happens is that his he finds this dog, like this sad little dog who's just like wandering around and really afraid of anything that remotely looks human, which I really cannot blame it. He like very slowly gains its trust, which I thought was like a realistic thing that it takes like weeks. But he seems kind of sick, and I don't know. The author spends a lot of time describing this dog situation, and then it literally just like a chapter, I remember, I can see this like in the Kindle, a chapter ends with like the dog died a week later. And I think at this point, I feel like that was like more than halfway through the book, and like, so we're at like 4:15 in the morning, and I'm just like, where are my cats? Like, I want to hug them, because sad. So I remember that happened. I don't think that, okay. So, I think then basically all the science happens. He's like looking at the science, and it occurs to him that maybe there is actually like a both and situation happening. So like maybe simultaneously, like maybe there is a disease that, you know, acts like a disease would, and it does something. So like what he kind of starts to envision is that like this disease just like keeps the body alive. It like preserves it, and it like it needs blood to keep itself going. And it is sensitive to something about garlic, which he's not really sure. He eventually figures out its smell. I don't think that really, it's the smell. It's not like an extract. It's the smell of the garlic. But then maybe there is a psychological component too. So this is what I like really liked about this book, was that it was this like twofold situation where like there is a disease, it does things, it behaves as though like as a disease that you would expect. And then there is a psychological component. So and he calls it yellow journalism, I think is the phrase that he used. And I was like, oh, so pertinent for now. Like, I don't know if you guys know anyone who's like fallen prey to Fox and the One American News Network, but it's not pretty. And I remember, so he's talking about like how this journalism is spreading all this bullshit about vampires that are like, vampires are real. And he has this amazing observation of like, well, it's really weird that these yellow newspapers, these horrible garbage papers, are so obsessed with the idea of selling more papers, even though the world is fucking empty. Like, there's soon going to be no one left to buy any of these papers, and yet they're still so focused on selling the papers. Does that sound like anything remotely pertinent to today? Yes, it does. We are just like little Neros in our little climate change bubble happening. Sorry, I read this book to not read the news and not get depressed about the world, but sometimes that's hard. They're very related. So anyway, so he's like, okay, science, and then also a psychological thing. So as soon as like the word starts being spread that vampires are real, and they list like, these are all the historical things that from legend that we know about vampires, and he realizes that is why things like crosses work inconsistently. So like if you were a Christian in life, you would have like been like, fuck, like the cross, the holy symbol, like this is like a thing for vampires. And if you're religious and you fell to like be a vampire, like you're kind of in disgrace from God, and then you'd probably feel kind of awkward seeing a cross, you know? Like I kind of had this vision in my head of like, you like, yeah, like you just like Jesus has been like salvation, and you're like, no, thank you, I'll be a vampire. And then you see a cross and you feel weird about it moving forward, right? So that's kind of the interesting twist on this particular vampire story, is that it's both things. So he like proved this by his friend, I think guy Benjamin, who like Lord Taunter. He tries that out with him because Benjamin was Jewish. So he holds a Torah up, and sure enough, like he literally, like, Benjamin gets in his house and is like, ugh! And he's just like, shit. So he like holds up this Torah and like backs him out of the house. So that kind of seems to hold true. All right. So now we know this about the vampires. Oh, and also apparently the stake to the heart doesn't really matter that it's the heart. The point is that it like makes an impact on them, like a puncture wound, and then it keeps the wound exposed to the air. So like a bullet doesn't work because it like shoots in, and then the bacteria are like and surrounded with this like bizarro jelly or whatever, and that doesn't kill them. So that explains why basically like anything that just is in the body gets isolated, and then they just like keep going. So like this is just like a super bug. It's like, I'm gonna live, whether that means literally reanimating dead flesh, well, you know, in that gross way, or if it means, see, I didn't sleep well last night either. Or if it means like surrounding a bullet, like in the body, like you gotta like, so yeah. So if you puncture them and it leaves it open, then it's exposed to the air, and then that kills them for some reason. But anyway, so then after years of this, our friend, last human alive, sees a woman. He sees a woman. And now we're gonna start to understand the most obvious indicators that this book was written in the 50s, because I think it was in the 50s. It was around then. It was quite early in awareness of the fact that like gross, like men are not animals who just, because like he didn't, I mean, okay, I'm not explaining this well. He doesn't rape her. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there because I was a little worried. And like he's just like, oh man, it's a woman, and then he just chases her, and she's like, shit, and then runs away. And yeah, he has some weird thoughts, but he also like feels bad about it. He's just like, oh, I don't want to like force her into anything, but also I've been alone for forever, and like this is not how I imagined this would be, because she's like screaming and running away, but I like have to catch her. And I'm like, oh dude, like no bueno. He captures her and then abducts her. I mean, there's really no nicer way to put it. He forces her to come back home with him, and then is like simultaneously like really freaked out by her, because he's like, she's a woman, I'm obsessed with her. And also like, but what if she's a vampire person? Because she could be sick but not that sick, and I wouldn't really know it because I don't really know any vampires. No, I don't hang out with them because I don't know why he hasn't. Well, because they all try to kill him. They all try to kill him and eat him, basically. And she hasn't done that, but she does have like a sensitivity to garlic, which he is like, what the fuck? And she's just like, no. Like, I was living here with my husband. I didn't really have to deal with a lot of this shit, but I have a really sensitive stomach, so it's a little suspicious. But she's like, look, test my blood. It's fine. Test my blood, because he's like, I have a vampire finding test. And she's like, okay, fine. But they both kind of mutually decide not to do this right away, which is dumb, yes. But I also kind of think like filled some of the like humanity elements of this book, because I mean, imagine something that you want so badly, like to find another person, and then you realize that maybe they are not who you thought they were. Maybe you'd give yourself 12 hours, like the course of a night, to like wait and see, live in the fantasy, enjoy. So that kind of made sense to me. And they have this kind of like, some weird shit goes down, like, you know, they have a lot of conversations, they really bond. But then he does decide, like, eventually, like, okay, look, it's time to test your blood. And as soon as he's about to like look into the microscope, she fucking screams like, don't do it, and then like beats him across the head with a mallet. So spoiler alert, turns out she was a vampire. So she didn't kill him though. So he wakes up a lot later to this letter that just says like, look, I'm supposed to spy on you because I live with a band of other people like me who are basically vampires who have the disease, who have, it hasn't progressed to the stage of like total decay and reanimation. And she was like, we take these pills that seem to feed the bloodlust, and it halts like a lot of the issues with the disease. So like we found a way to live, and like we still like can't go, we can't do like all kinds of things that we want to do, but like we can go out in the sun a little bit more. Like we're figuring it out. We're gonna rebuild society. But the thing is, there's this douchebag who keeps going around and murdering us, like whenever we're sleeping, whether that's during the day or, I mean, he only goes out during the day, so he kills him during the day. She was like, in fact, like, you fucking killed my husband. Like, my husband, he was just like me. He was like a cool dude. He didn't try to eat you. I didn't try to eat you. So kind of fuck you, but also like, she felt bad for her. I mean, I feel bad for him too. She's just like, you know, we really bonded, and so I'm not gonna kill you, but you gotta go. Like, you gotta go. Like, my friends do not like you. Nobody likes you. You have to leave. So he ignores her and stays. And then eventually, she is right, a huge group of these vampires like show up. Yeah, and I remember he's like looking at them, and they're just like, woo, war party, like time to murder, and like want to kill him. Oh no. They kill Benjamin. They kill Benjamin, the Lord Taunter. He's like taunting, as is his wont. And then they fucking destroy Benjamin. So our friend, last human alive, sees this like bloodlust in them and is just really grossed out and disgusted, and decides that he's just gonna take them out. He's like, this is not what a good society does. Like, there's no hope for me. I'm gonna go out. Pew pew. And well, not shooting, because that doesn't work with them, but I guess like stabbing or whatever. So long story short, they capture him and take him back to wherever it is they're living. Vampire-topia, perhaps. In the meantime, he gets like, he's shot like on the way. It's pretty gruesome because he puts up quite a fight. So he had, then like the crux of the book really is when he wakes up in the hospital and his lady friend is there, and she's like, look, I'm pretty high up here, which is why I can come visit our weird fucking prisoner, but I was gonna help you escape, but you're already shot, you're gonna die. And also, like, everyone is really afraid. Like, there are like hundreds of us now, and like, you're just this asshole who exists in the shadows and murders us for no reason. Like, we're not trying to kill you. Like, if you noticed, our team showed up and killed fucking Benjamin because we don't like those super far gone vampires. Like, they're decrepit and gross and like an abomination. I'm like, really, guys? Like, they're an abomination, but whatever. She's like, we have our group, our society, like, we're basically like people, but we have these like little quirks and flaws, and like, we don't want the dead ones. So like, that's what they were going after. Not you. They were just gonna capture you. Oh, let's be real. Like, I think they were probably gonna still put him on trial. But anyway, we get to skip the trial because you fucked up, man, and you attacked everyone, and it was awful. So you're gonna die. like you killed everyone's friends. I mean, you killed my husband and like all of these vampires who like were just doing their vampire thing, like not actively harming you. But I'm gonna give you suicide pills because I like you. I don't know why she likes him so much. Like, I felt bad for him, but like, he was kind of weird and creepy, and like attacked her and dragged her to his house against her will, thought about assaulting her, which is pretty fucked up, but whatever. For the purposes of the story, they had a bond, so she decides to give him suicide pills, which he decides to take, because he's like, you know what? Well, and this is kind of the moment. He has this realization. He's like, I'm of the past. Like, there are no other people that anyone knows of, and this is like another thing she told him, no other people left. It's just me. You know, I am the boogeyman. You know, like, I am this like shitty person who haunts the lives of all of these new vampires who, you know, that they're not murdering each other, like they're living cohesively together. But he's like, in my head, he's like in this like little room, like way at the top of some giant building. I don't know if it's building, but in my head there's just like this mob of just like, yes, like, kill him. So he's like hearing them chanting, and you know, and he and the lady had talked about how any new society is kind of violent and brutal while it is getting its footing. So he like elicits a promise from her to try not to let it be too intense. But you know, he kind of makes he's like, because he was like, oh, those dudes, this war party were bonkers. And she was like, did you see your fucking face? Like, when you're going after them too? Like, you're also an asshole. Like, so anyway, in the end, he sort of makes his peace with the fact that he needs to die. Like, he's just, there's no bringing back humanity. There's no saving the world. And it ends with, you know, I am legend. Like, I am just history. Poof. So I think I remembered all the important. Oh, in case you're curious, apparently he's immune because he got bitten by a vampire bat while he was in the military in Central America, I want to say. Yeah, so that I don't know. I was curious. So all in all, I thought it was a good story. Like, really solid. Like, a really solid take, interesting take on that. I don't know how accurate the science is, but like, who cares? The point is like what you feel, what you take away from it. I thought it had a lot to say about our world as well, about perspectives and discrimination. I didn't think it was like super well written though. Like, it's pretty surface level. Like, you know, you get a lot of implied stuff. Like yeah, okay, I can imagine it would feel terrible to have to like kill your undead wife who's come back from the grave because you wouldn't burn her because like you had just burned your daughter and that was traumatizing. But he doesn't really get into that emotional language. So yeah, I felt like it was okay written. It was really powered by, I think, the strength of the plot points and the story and this like unique perspective. So anyway, that's episode 1 of the Insomnia Book Club. I hope you enjoyed it. If you made it this long, feel free to give me feedback. I mean, I don't really know what else I can do to make this better unless I want to edit the videos, which I don't want to do. Okay. All right. Well, I hope, should you wake in the middle of the night, you have good reading material at your disposal. Peace.